everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to take a look at the Transformers Legacy Wave 3 Leader Class Dragon Megatron. Let's start off by taking a look at the packaging, and then we will get into the review. So of course up, we have Transformers on the side, we have the Legacy logo, we have Transmittal to Megatron. Weird enough, they use a Predacon symbol from the Transformers Prime series. Not really sure why they did that. We do have a really nice artwork shot of Megatron in his robot mode, and Dragon mode, breathing fire, looking really cool. On the side we do have two other artwork shots, a close-up of his dragon face and a close-up of him in the remote mode. I do apologize, there is some glare. On the back, he transforms in 33 steps. There is a really cool barcode area, so if you scan that, it shows his stats. There is a product shot of him and his robot, his dragon, and another close-up of the dragon head, showing you can attach that, include a blast of piece to his face to look like he's breathing fire, which is a pretty cool effect. And on the final side, we have the typical Legacy Decepticon artwork, and that is pretty much it for the packaging, so let's now get into the review. Here we have Dragon Megatron in his robot mode. Let's take a look at the details, starting at the very top with that head sculpt. Some really nice silver for the face, some gunmetal gray for the sides of the face. There's some really nice gold for these tusk sections, some transparent orange plastic for that forehead piece, which is accurate to the Beast Wars show. So overall, I actually do quite like this head sculpt. Some people don't as much. No, it's not the most accurate to the Beast Wars series. Would I have preferred a more accurate one from, of course, Season 3 of the Beast Wars series? Yes, I really would have liked that, but for what we got, I actually really do like it. It's pretty cool, menacing and scary. It's pretty cool how they sculpted in some teeth design. It would have been nice if he could have opened his mouth, but unfortunately he cannot. But let's take a look at the details of the other parts of the figure. So of course, getting down to the chest, there's the really cool claws here done in that really nice kind of goldish bronze. This really cool circular section done in some really nice transparent orange plastic, and this really nice kind of faded purple color for the rest of the chest. That actually looks super cool. Getting down to, of course, the other arm, the more normal arm. So of course, this is a Beast Wars character. They took that same design trait from Kingdom and those other Beast Wars characters, where there's some texture on this figure. As you can see, there's some texturing on the shoulders, some in the forearm, and of course some other areas of the figure, which I'll mention a little bit later in the review. But overall, I actually do quite like it. It's pretty simple. They needed a normal arm, of course, because the other one is so crazy, but I actually really do like how they designed the hands. There's actually some individual fingers. No, it's not actually individual articulation, but the design of it is much more interesting because, of course, with the typical deluxe, the hand is just like a closed fist. It's really boring. It's really just like a port so you can plug the weapon into, but there's actually some individual fingers. You can pick out the thumb and several other fingers. They're more spread out. It makes it a little bit more interesting. There's actually some spikes done in gold, so I actually do quite like the design of the arm. But of course, the other one is much more interesting, and I think they did an amazing job. Detail-wise, looks so cool. Let's start at the actual dragon head itself. Hopefully you can see it well. But of course, you have the entire kind of crown or crest section at the top of the dragon head done in that goldish bronze with some red and of course some purple. You can actually see the teeth there looking super cool and scary, done in that really nice shiny gold, which he can open and close his mouth. I also really do like the entire design of the neck and head. You can actually see like some scale design, some more texturing for the neck. Really nice purple out these whole individual sections of the neck, which is super cool. And you can put this guy in some really cool poses, so definitely I think they nailed this design of the entire dragon neck and head. And of course the shoulder is still different from the other one, much more big and bulky, and looks pretty cool. There's some mechanical detail in there, but overall looking very nice in my opinion. Unfortunately, from the side view, yes, they do have to have this open so the dragon arm can move out, but it does look a little bit odd that there's just this really big gap there, so I wish maybe they could have done that a little bit different, but I do understand why it's there, so you can move the dragon arm out. So there is a bit of a cost for this big dragon arm, but overall, design-wise, they definitely nailed that really cool, scary dragon look. Getting down to the rest of the figure, of course, I really do like how the claws are actually just blatantly there. These are actually the dragon feet, but they're actually the robot mode feet at the same time. I'm actually super glad they just kept them that way. They look super cool and scary. Huge talons done in gold, sort of bronze color, looking very scary and cool. We actually have some big spikes, and of course some more texturing on the knee pads, and of course the ankles. Overall looking very cool in my opinion. And actually quite a bit of mechanical detail. There's some more of those little like gear sections at the knees. Overall looking very cool. or the side of the leg, and of course the heel spur is also done in that really nice gold. And I do have to mention the back, so there is some complaints of this figure having too much kibble, so of course the wings, I really wouldn't count that as kibble. Most people are complaining about this backpack section, which this is actually becoming the belly for the Dragon mode, so you really have to put it somewhere. And honestly, I can give it a pass. I kind of treat this figure like I did with King Galvatron when that first came out, if you understood or remember my reaction. Mostly when I got it, I wasn't going to expect too much, because I had the Time to Return Galvatron, and that figure sucked. So I always knew, I kind of already knew it was going to be better than the Time to Return version, but I really didn't want to have my expectations too high, because it's a very hard figure to do. And that's the same case with this. You have to get a Transformer, or just a generic figure, and have it transform into a dragon, and it looked good in both modes with very little kibble, and I think they definitely succeeded. For the rest of the figure, there is pretty much zero kibble. Of course, we have the ponytail, which that is accurate to the Beast Wars series, and the toy. Really, the only part where there is some kibble is just this chest section, which I kind of wish could tab in a little bit better. Unfortunately, on my copy, there is a tab in slot back here. I'm not sure if this is really supposed to tab into place, because the tab on here and the slot on the actual back of the figure are for other areas in the transformation, but I'm not really sure if you're supposed to use it. It can tab in place, but unfortunately on my copy, it will typically get the head out of its desired spot for transformation. So really, I kind of just let it rest there. But really, I would say that's the only kibble that there is. And personally, it doesn't bother me, because it's on the back. You can barely see it. And even when you do, it's designed very well. So personally, again, I'm not that picky with this figure, because it has to transform into a dragon. They barely ever do that with any figure, even in Beast Wars. So I'm going to give this figure some slack. But overall, design-wise, very impressed, looking super cool. Let's now get down to the features and accessories, and of course the feature being you can spread the wings out. We'll get to that in just a quick sec. Let's get to the accessory, which is the one Blassa piece, which actually is made of solid plastic and not rubber this time, which is always nice. I'm actually really glad they did that, because this is a leader. I think it deserves that. So unfortunately in this mode, there's really no use for it. As advertised on the box, you're supposed to have him hold it like a club or like a mace or something, so it's supposed to be like a fire weapon or something. I don't really know. It looks a little bit silly to me, so I typically won't use this for display options. I'm probably going to most of the time keep it in his dragon mouth, because I think that looks the best. But overall, that's the first option. That's really the main option they say to do for the remote mode. Really, the Blassa piece is mostly for the dragon mouth in the dragon mode. That's their most really intent for it. But you still can plug it in there if you want. So you kind of have to have his dragon head a little bit further up. You have to open his mouth. So I do have a minor complaint here. Really, I would rather this be fixed than the whole backpack situation. I could live with that. So unfortunately, the ports, so of course you use the peg and it plugs into the port inside his mouth. I really would have liked if they maybe kind of used some interesting engineering. I think they've done this before on previous figures. I think maybe with the Dinobots in the 86 line. I think, you know, of course, you can plug Blassa pieces into their mouth. But a really cool, clever feature, again, I don't know if it was with them because I don't have those figures, but I think I remember seeing something like that. But there was actually a really cool mechanism where the whole port in there actually was unhinged, so you could angle the Blassa piece up and down and not just suck in a certain way. I'm pretty sure Earthrise Skylynx, the commander class, I think you could plug Blassa pieces into his mouth, but there is actually a whole tongue section where you would plug it in and you can actually move it up and down. So I think that would have been pretty cool if you could do it with this. The reason why I'm saying that is, unfortunately, as it is, it kind of just goes straight down. You know, this is actually the tallest. Of course, you can move the shoulder, but again, it kind of just keeps shooting straight down. I think it would have been nice if there was that hinge so you could have it being straight forward or straight down or up or something like that. I think that would be pretty nice. Of course, in this situation, that would look pretty cool if you have like a figure on the ground, he's injured or damaged or something like that. That would look pretty cool. But overall, I think that would have been nice if you could have angled the Blassa piece so it could move up a little bit more, because just having it pointed straight down looks a little bit weird in my opinion. But as for the Dragon mode, I think it looks pretty cool because you can have him flying and he can be blasting at some Maximals and Autobots on the ground when he's up in the air, so I think that really does work. That's really why they mainly advertise for this to be in the Dragon mode, not in this mode, because it will always be angling down. That's really why. So it would have been nice if they had some more clever engineering in that whole port section, so you could angle it, but I do have to be realistic. This is a very small section for them to put in all that sort of mechanical stuff, so I really don't think they would have been able to fit that in there. But that's pretty much it for the accessory. Overall, it's pretty cool, but unfortunately the leaders typically do suffer with the accessory problem, where it typically only comes with one, and sometimes even none, like the previous Beast Wars Megatron, the T-Rex one, it came with no accessories. So I will be grateful that this comes at least with one, but it would have been nice maybe if it came with like a blaster or something else, because as it is in the remote mode, there's really not much to do with it. But let's now get down to, of course, the feature, then we'll get down to articulations. You can have his wings spread completely out, which I think looks super cool in my opinion. I would be cautious because these wing pieces, they're not clear plastic, but they're kind of a bendable, pliable plastic, but of course they could bend and maybe have a stress mark, so you do not want them to be messed up. So carefully just spread these out. You could do one at a time or all of them at a time, really kind of just depends however you wish. Sometimes it's a little bit hard, they get a little bit stuck together. And then, of course, just start to bring them out like that. And there we have one wing all done, which I think looks super cool. And, of course, you can have them angled forward and back, which is really part of articulation. But let's do the same thing on the other side. Just bring these out. Again, make sure when you're collapsing them, don't do it too fast, because I've actually had myself get these wings caught, because there's these little spike sections. They can kind of get a little bit messed up, so do make sure you are careful with that. But, of course, I think this look here just looks amazing in my opinion. That looks really cool. Hopefully you can see the wings. I hope they're not too see-through, because they are a very bright kind of yellowish orange, but hopefully you can see them with all my lighting and my wet background. But I think that looks super cool in my opinion. One of them actually is a little bit stuck. There we go. But that looks absolutely awesome in my opinion. That looks super cool. And of course, if you wanted to, again, you could get that blaster piece, have them fully equipped with the fire mace or something, but personally me, I don't really like that look. But if you like it, go ahead. Here's a back view just to see them, without the front view. I think that might be a bit clearer, but I really do like that kind of faded purple. Kind of looks spray painted. I actually kind of like that. It actually looks super cool, like war paint or something. But really nice orange and purple. And you can actually sort of have a bit of customization. These little sections here can move forward and back if you want to. And again, of course, these can angle a little bit more forward or back, which overall looks pretty cool. So you can display your figure like this, but do be aware, when you have the wings out, it takes up a lot of space. So probably, unfortunately, when I display this figure in my collection, wherever I put it, not really sure as of yet, I probably will have them collapse. I love this look. This looks awesome. If I had a huge house, I would do this, but I don't. So, unfortunately, I probably will collapse them because it takes up so much room, like in this mode. But that looks super cool in my opinion. Just absolutely amazing. Let's now get down to articulation. So I'm going to collapse the wings just to get a little bit more space and clearance for myself. So I'm going to go back here. So, of course, starting with the articulation, just to let you know already, each one has its own separate hinge. So you really just kind of slowly collapse them, which, again, they can sometimes get caught. So you really got to take your time in collapsing them. Got one done. So here's a solid hinge for all of them, as you can see, which can get a little bit messy. Make sure you have a good grip. There we go. And then, of course, let's collapse the other, and then we will get into the actual articulation. So we can actually start back here. So, again, articulation-wise, the wings have this hinge forward and back. These sections can move up and down. And I'm actually going to show the ponytail articulation, because you can put them in some pretty cool dynamic poses if you don't want it just sticking straight down. So each one of these little ligaments or sections are in a ball joint, so, of course, they can rotate all of these sections. You can have it more of a dynamic pose. You can have it kind of flapping in the wind if you want to, just to be a little bit more interesting and not just have it facing straight down. But let me move the wings back just to have some more space. But one thing you do need to be aware of, which I'm glad I remembered to mention, is of course the head is attached to the ponytail, so whenever you move the head, the ponytail will move as well. So it can get a little bit annoying if you have these wings back here, so make sure you have enough clearance for that. So that's really the first step of articulation. The head can of course move side to side, but it will move the ponytail as well. As for up and downward movement, unfortunately not really any movement up or down. It's kind of really locked in place, but you can untab a section there. That's really due to transformation. So if you want more of an up and downward movement, you can, but it does kind of ruin the more kind of cohesive look. Now for, of course, the arms, I'm going to move the dragon head out of the way for now. As for this arm, there is a swivel at the shoulder. Of course, the arm can move out and in. There is also a swivel at the bicep, a double jointed elbow bend, really due to transformation. Unfortunately, there is no wrist swivel, which I really think they could have done, especially in this arm, because this barely transforms for transformation, but you can actually angle the wrist down, but that is due to transformation. But I really think they probably could have put a swivel in for that arm. As for the dragon head, of course, there is quite a bit of articulation. Again, the arm head can move up, the mouth can move up and down. There is also a hinge here at just the head, and each one of these sections has a ball joint, so of course it can swivel up and down, swivel up and down, swivel to the side, up and down, and of course swivel. But you do have to be aware it's pretty limited because each of these sections are pretty close next to each other, so I would say there could be some better articulation, but I'm actually very grateful because actually one of my main concerns for this figure was the dragon head. I was worried the joints were not going to be tight enough. I was worried that the weight of this arm was going to be like super loose, and it's going to like flap everywhere. But the just on my copy, of course, this could just be my copy or it could be everyone's. The joints on each one of these ball joints and the head and the shoulder is actually really tight, but it's not too tight. There is, of course, such thing as too tight joints, so I think they did a pretty good job with the tolerances with this figure. Of course, as for the shoulder, there is a swivel, so of course you can move forward and back, and of course the arm can move out and in, and of course up and down. So standard articulation for the shoulder, but of course quite a bit for the rest of the dragon. As for the lower parts of the figure, there is a waist swivel, actually a ratcheted one, which is always really nice. The leg can kick that far forward. And of course that far back is a bit of a stretch. You do have to move some things out of the way because of all this stuff, so it's a bit limited. If you move the dragon neck and head out of the way, there is a full kick to the side, so a full splits. There is a swivel. There is a knee bend to a very good degree. And there is also an ankle pivot, and there is also a hinge forward and back, but that is mostly due to transformation. But overall, that is pretty much it. It can be a bit annoying to stand this guy sometimes because he has so many hinges in his legs, but I do have to really stress quite a bit that the tolerances on this guy are actually extremely good. But that is pretty much it for the details, of course, articulation, and accessories. Let's now get down to some comparisons. So I wasn't entirely sure what comparisons to do because there are so many Beast Wars characters and Kingdom figures that they have done, so I just thought to do some of the most popular and common ones we've seen. So I thought to do Optimus Primal, which I really do hope we get an Optimal Optimus. That would be so awesome. I actually do have my Throne of Primus. That was the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive, I think in 2016, if I'm correct. Check me in the comments if I'm wrong. It might be 2016 or 2017. That was really a repaint of the classic Power of the Primes release of Optimal Optimus, but I do hope we get a modern day version. The reason why I didn't make the comparison, or I'm not going to make the comparison, is unfortunately it's kind of out of my reach and in storage, so unfortunately I will not be able to get that for a comparison. I do apologize, but I thought this was a good comparison. This is really, of course, his first Season 1 comparison with, of course, the Season 3 version of Megatron, but they do look pretty cool next to each other. But as you can see, this is a Voyager, this is a Leader. Usually, of course, with Voyagers and Leaders, they're usually pretty close size-wise as of nowadays. Like Blitzwing from Legacy and, of course, G-Axis from Legacy, they're pretty much the exact same size, even being, of course, several price apart, of course, and Voyager is about $25 now, and Leader's like 55. So as you can see, this is a pretty decently sized figure. I know a lot of people complaining about the size and price ratio recently. I think he's a pretty solid, big Leader class figure, but they do look pretty cool next to each other. For another comparison, I thought I would do a Megatron on Megatron comparison. So here he is with Beast Wars / Kingdom Season 1 Megatron, the T-Rex version, of course. I think they do look very cool next to each other. I do apologize, I think there is some glare at his face right now because of that silver. But I think they do look pretty cool next to each other. And I have to say, they did such a better job on this figure. I do like this Kingdom Beast Wars Megatron, but as you can see, there is so much kibble on the back. All this stuff, as you can see, of course, yes, they are two different modes, but they did it so much better with this Dragon Megatron, in my opinion. But again, they do look very cool next to each other. But just in my opinion, I've actually always preferred the Season 3, the Dragon Megatron look the most anyway. That is just in my opinion, but they do look pretty cool next to each other. For another comparison, here he is with the recently reviewed Legacy Wave 3 Voyager Inferno. So again, as you can see, pretty big, pretty decently sized figure, because recently, you know, most leaders, like G2, Laser Optimus Prime, he's pretty much the size of a Voyager, so they definitely went all out. They tried to make this guy big, that's what I was hoping, because he was pretty massive and huge in both modes in the Beast Wars series, so I'm really glad that they made this guy pretty big. I would have actually preferred maybe this guy to be even a Commander class size, like Jetfire size. I think that would have been pretty cool, but as it is, I am quite content. But they do look very cool next to each other. Actually, two Season 3 figures. Inferno, of course, his character was introduced in Season 1, but he actually pretty much made it through the entire series. And again, I would love to see some more Predacons like Quick Strike, and more Maximals too, Depth Charge, Rampage. That would be awesome to see Rampage. So hopefully they keep making these, because they're actually very solid releases. The last two Beast Wars characters they made, Inferno and Dragon Megatron here, have been very, very solid figures. And of course, here he is with Waspinator, and he just barely just like reaches his knee. So if you want a big figure, there you go. He's pretty massive. But they do look pretty cool next to each other. And I will try and make some other comparisons. Again, I'm not entirely sure what comparisons to make in the Dragon mode, but I will try and make as many relevant comparisons as possible. But that is pretty much it for the Dragon mode. Overall, a very solid figure. I just have to say again, let me know what you think of this figure in the comment section down below. Actually, let me know, what is your preferred like version or style of Megatron in the Beast Wars series? Did you like the Season 1, where he transformed into the more classic T-Rex, the Season 2, where he transformed into the more of a metallic, you know, kind of transmittal T-Rex, or of course the Season 3 appearance, the transmittal to Dragon Megatron appearance? Personally, my favorite, I actually quite like this one, but I'd be very interested if they could make another version of Megatron, of course, his Season 2 comparison, his Transmittal 1 version. I would love to see that. That'd be really cool to see. But that is pretty much it for the robot mode, so let's now get down to transformation into the Dragon. Let's now get down to transformation into the Dragon mode. So what you're going to want to do is hinge the arm up, and there is a tab on the forearm and a slot on the shoulder. You're just going to align that up and tab it into place. You can then get the hand, hinge this down just like that, and that's pretty much it for the arm for now. And then what you're going to do is get the whole chest piece, and you're going to open this up. Just hinge that down like that. And then what you're going to do is get the claws, just hinge these out, and then if you can see, you're going to get both these panel sections, hinge these open, like that. And then if you can see, there is a panel on both sides of the chest or waist section. You're going to open these up like that. So those used to be up. If you can see, I'm going to hinge them down like that. And then what you're going to want to do is go to the back here. You're going to get the entire head section and hinge this down like that. So we can leave that there for now. And then you're going to get this entire gold piece right here. Flip this out like that. And then you can get, there is a tab again on the arm and a slot on the inside there that's going to tab into place like that. Align that up. There we go. And this entire gold section is going to go around the hands. And then you're going to hinge this entire assembly up like that. And then of course I do know the entire dragon neck is out of frame, which that doesn't matter because we're really not going to do much with it right now. All you really need to do is use the shoulder joint and hinge that forward. So pretty much the entire dragon section is good right now. And then what you can do is bring these pieces back up, and then there is a tab on the inside of these pieces here, and there is a slot right there, and you're going to align those right into place like that. So just make sure those get tabbed in like that. And there we go. And then what you're going to want to do is now go down to the legs. You can move the wings out of the way for now. You can split the entire leg section in half like that, which this part can get a little bit messy, I will admit, so hopefully I can show you the best I can. There is a slot right here, and there is a tab on the body itself that's going to tab right into place like that. And then there is a port right here and a tab right there, and that's going to align with a peg and a tab. So you're just going to have to align everything up on one side. Like that. Got one half, and then of course all you need to do is align the other. For some reason on this side it's actually a very smooth one. As you can see, I had to apply quite a bit of pressure. I'll be careful with that. And then what you need to do is bring the tail back again, and then you're going to bring this entire section up and over the robot chest. There is tabs on this piece and slots, as you can see right there, and that will tab right into place like that. As for the last step, you're going to sort of make the entire dragon legs. You're just really kind of going to hunch them up. So you just hinge the this robot leg back, and you're going to get this entire section, hinge this down, and there you have sort of more of the kind of chicken sort of crunched up legs, just to make it a little bit more animal-like. You can do the same thing on your side, so just hinge that back, get this section, hinge it forward like that, and there we have Megatron in his dragon mode. You just gotta straighten him up a tad bit. We can bring the neck down, kind of position everything, and there we have him in his dragon mode. And of course the last thing to do, you have to have his wings spread, of course, which this is just gonna make him even bigger. So you just gotta spread all of these wings out. So you can just spread them out like that. Get every single one spread apart and up. Got one section done. Do the same thing on the other wing. Spread all of these apart. And there we have him fully complete. And wow, this dragon is huge. I know it's not the best view right now. I'm going to go off cam, just straighten him up a little bit so you can see him better. I know it's pretty bad right now, so I will straighten him up, adjust the camera view, and then of course we will take a look at the details. Here we have Dragon Megatron in his dragon mode, of course. Let's take a look at the details. I will try and show them as best I can. He is just so massive. I'm going to try to keep him in frame as much as I can of taking a look at the details. But let's start at the very top with the dragon neck and, of course, head. And I think this looks super cool. I'm going to briefly show this because I already did take a look at the details of the head earlier. But, of course, we have the gold for the teeth, really nice piercing yellow for the eyes, and, of course, we have this really nice dark red and purple. The neck looking super cool. You can actually see the really nice texture and kind of scale detail on the neck. Really cool crest section done in that gold, and some more gold on the underside of the neck there, looking very cool as well. It just looks absolutely amazing. Some more big nostril sections, and of course quite a bit of layers. You can see again all of that scale detail. They did an amazing job with that. Really nice dark purple on the top of the neck, looking amazing. We have the little claws here done in gold, looking very cool. Also, the mechanical details, it's actually super cool. It's a really good mixture of a beast and mechanical. You actually can see some mechanical details on the legs there, some on the main body as well. Overall, just looking absolutely amazing. If we actually go to the chest, hopefully you can see we have this really nice silver. You can actually see how they kind of try to mimic the claw design and put it on the belly or chest of the dragon. Really nice gold and red. This whole section here I think is supposed to be where he keeps Megatron's spark, because of course, if you don't know, in the Beast Wars show, spoiler alert, he takes the, of course, original G1 Megatron, he takes a spark and stores it inside him, and that's how he, of course, gets upgraded to this Transmittal 2 Dragon Megatron. So I think that's probably where he stores it. That's just my guess, where it would be. But overall, just super cool. So, of course, we have the entire huge wings, huge wingspan. That just looks super cool. And, of course, we have the tail down here with the giant classic claw, which is super cool. So you can grab some Maximals and Autobots with, which is super cool as well. Looking very cool with that gold, very sharp and menacing. Again, that purple. Some people wish it could be a little bit longer. I do agree with that complaint. I think it's a little bit short for my liking, but that's a very minor complaint for an overall really cool looking dragon mode. And kibble-wise, there is like virtually no kibble anywhere. Very clean back. The legs look super cool, so of course, the reason why is, of course, these are the robot mode legs, just a little bit scrunched up, but I think they look pretty cool as they are right now. But yeah, I think just an amazing, huge dragon mode that I think they did a really good job with. So, of course, articulation-wise, I'm going to go by it pretty quickly, because some of the articulation really hasn't changed since the robot mode. So, of course, this entire head and neck is the exact same articulation as it was as an arm. So, of course, you can open the mouth and close it. There is a ball joint at the head. And, of course, each individual section is a ball joint, so it can swivel and hinge up a little bit, as well as, of course, there is a swivel here and a hinge here. So it has pretty good articulation there as well. As for the little mini arms, which I will, I'm actually really glad how good articulation is in these little arms, because that was actually a very big complaint for several of the Beast Wars / Kingdom characters, like the T-Rex Megatron, like Dinobot. They had the little beast arms, but unfortunately there was like no articulation in them whatsoever. So there's actually pretty articulation in these. So there is a swivel at this section. There is a swivel at this section as well, if you can have a good grip on it. There's also an elbow bend, and there is also a swivel here and a swivel at the wrist. There's like 4 or 5 points of articulation on these little claws, which is super nice. So you can put them in some really expressive poses. So I'm really glad that they changed that. I think that shows that they're listening to us with the complaints about the other Kingdom / Beast Wars characters. As for the legs, pretty much exactly the same, of course. The ankle tilt, there's a hinge here, you know, out to the side as well, so you can have it a little bit more spread out if you want to, like that. Of course, there's a knee bend, there's a swivel, ankle pivots. There's a hinge here, so pretty much with the legs, everything that was before and the robot mode is here now, because again, barely changed the legs for the dragon mode whatsoever. And as for the wings, I'm just going to quickly cover them again. Of course, each individual one has a slight swivel, so you can really angle them however you wish. There is also a hinge here, so you can have a little bit more back or forward. And of course, the tail, kind of like the dragon neck and head, there is a ball joint at each individual section that you can see here, so that's pretty nice. I do kind of wish maybe at this section you could angle it a little bit more out, because it typically will stay close to the ground, which again, that would help if the tail was a little bit longer. So articulation wise, that's pretty much it. There's some new added areas of articulation. There's some that kind of stay the same, but overall an amazing, very cool dragon mode. He did get a little bit messed up, as you can see, but he looks just absolutely awesome in my opinion. Now, of course, for the accessories, the main purpose of the Fire Blasted piece was, of course, for this mode. So if you open his mouth up, you can use this peg, and there is a port inside of his mouth. Just plugging that in, you can create a really cool effect. I probably could create a better pose than this, because, of course, I just did articulation, so he's a little bit messed up. He's a little messy right now. But I will make sure to post some pictures in the beginning intro, and, of course, for the thumbnail. So if you want some really cool battle poses and stances for this character, make sure you watch the intro, because I usually try and create some really awesome poses. But as it is right here, that looks super cool. I think for this, the Blasted piece really shines. For the robot mode, not so much. I really don't know what to do with that, but that looks absolutely amazing in my opinion. Other than that, there's really no other place to store it. He can't hold it, and really just for his mouth. I think that looks pretty cool. I think, honestly, another way they could have given this figure another accessory is, it's a very small attention to detail moments, but if you watch the entire complete Beast Wars series, the episode he actually becomes Dragon Megatron, he does breathe fire, but he actually also does breathe ice on Optimal Optimus, so they probably could have done this if they wanted to. They could have, of course, included a fire one, and they could have included a blue one, so he could breathe fire and, of course, breathe ice, which, again, I understand why they didn't, because that was a very small moment in this series. He only breathes ice like one time, I'm pretty sure, so it does make sense why they didn't, but if they really needed to include another accessory, they could have done that. I think that would have been kind of a nice little moment they could have recreated if they, of course, create a Optimus Primal or Optimal Optimus character. But that's pretty much it for accessories. Let's now get down to one quick Beast comparison. Hopefully I can fit both of them in. I'm just going to scoot him a little bit more to the side. Here he is with his previous version, the Kingdom Wave 1 Leader Class T-Rex Megatron, and they look very cool next to each other, but as you can see, the size-wise, just insane how big this one is. Of course, they're both Leader Class figures. They're both, I'd say, around the same price point, around 55. Of course, there is inflation, but still, insanely just huge size change here, but they do look very cool next to each other. This is really the only comparison I could think of. Again, unfortunately, I do not have an Optimal Optimus ready at hand to compare. So I thought I'd just do an old classic Megatron on Megatron comparison, and they do look very cool next to each other. So let me know what you think of this Dragon mode in the comment section down below. Do you like it? Do you think it's the good size? Actually, yeah, do let me know. Do you think this was the right class for them to do? Should it have been a commander, or do you think it works as a leader? I think it does work as a leader class figure. I don't have any complaints there. Would I have liked them to use a commander class size for this figure? I think that would have been really cool. It would have been a huge dragon and a huge robot. I think it would have worked. But overall, two really cool beasts. I pretty much have no complaints for the Dragon mode. Really only that, of course, it would be nice again if they had kind of an ice blast piece or something like that. But other than that, it's a really cool Dragon mode. Pretty hard to display in a collection if you have limited space, so that's probably why I will be displaying this in the robot mode. A little bit easier to store, but as it is, they do look absolutely amazing next to each other. That is pretty much it for the Dragon mode, so let's now get down to the final thoughts. Let's now get down to the final thoughts for the Transformers Legacy Wave 3 Leader Class Transmetal 2 Dragon Megatron. Starting the Dragon mode, it just looks absolutely amazing. So huge, so menacing, so scary, and just looks so awesome. Of course, the really cool Fire Blast piece, I think it really works in this mode. You can create some awesome poses like you see here. Hopefully you can get it all in shot. I really was trying to show as much as I can when I'm doing the final thoughts. It just looks super cool. Of course, all the colors, I really do like how they did a really cool scale effect on the neck, the legs. I'm also really glad how they did a really good job mixing the, of course, mechanical detail and the more beast detail together. It looks super cool. The tail always looks nice with the huge claw section. I do think it could be a little bit longer, because as it is, it typically just kind of droops to the bottom of your shelf or the floor of your shelf. You can never really get it in that good, that many dynamic poses. But everything else looks looking super cool. The giant claws or talons at his feet, of course, the giant massive wingspan, which is always nice. You do have to be aware, though, if you want to display this figure in this mode, you have to have a pretty big space and a pretty big shelf to, of course, be able to store such a big figure. I most likely will be storing this figure in the robot mode. That is just my opinion, but I would love, honestly, to have two to be able to store one in both mode. I'm so tempted to get another one of these. Another plus to this figure is the articulation in both modes, especially in this one. So if you have Kingdom Dinobot or Kingdom Megatron, the T-Rex version, you know that the articulation and the dinosaur mode and their little arms was actually severely limited. That was one of the main complaints with Dinobot. Overall, it was a really good figure in both modes. It looked super good, but down to articulation and the little dino arms, unfortunately, there was virtually none. There was like a slight swivel at the shoulder, and that was it. But these have like 6 points of articulation, so that's really nice how they're listening to us. I'm really glad. As for the articulation of the rest of the figure, of course, the tail, pretty much just some ball joints, and of course, as for the neck and head of the dragon, it's the exact same as, of course, as it was in the robot when it was armed. So several ball joints at all those individual sections. Of course, you can open and close the mouth, and overall very well detailed. As for the legs, pretty much the exact same as it was in the robot mode, because of course these legs are really just the robot mode legs just scrunched up a little bit. but I do think they look very cool, how they're kind of bended and angled, kind of like a chicken, sort of, but it looks pretty cool. And getting down to, of course, transformation, overall, not that complex, actually. It's much more enjoyable. I was worried this figure was going to turn out kind of like Kingdom Megatron, not saying that figure is bad, but the transformation I never found fun. If you watch that review, which of course was a while ago, I didn't do my reviews as good as I do now, in my opinion, the transformation was never fun. It was kind of annoying, it was a bit of a hodgepodge. Of course, there's all those rubber pieces. He has a huge backpack, so that was never fun. Of course, there was actually quite a few areas that people were worried about that was going to break, and in this transformation, really, it's actually pretty fun. Yes, there's a few areas that are a little bit more complex than I would say like a deluxe, but not nearly as annoying and fiddly as the Kingdom Megatron, which I'm really glad, because I was worried it was going to turn out that way. Getting down to the robot mode, absolutely amazing robot mode. Of course, you can still have the wings spread out. By, of course, the box, you're really only supposed to have the wings out for the dragon mode. I have them out for the robot because it looks super cool. Unfortunately, with the blast up piece, typically that is really made specifically for this mode. You can attach it to his dragon arm slash head, and the robot, but unfortunately the port inside of its mouth is angled down, so it looks a little bit weird with him breathing fire out of it, and it just shoots straight down. I kind of wish, as I mentioned earlier, if you missed it, I kind of wish they had a feature inside the dragon head for the port to be able to angle the blaster piece to your liking, so you could have it straight forward or down or up. I think that would have been pretty nice. Again, I know why they didn't, because of course that would probably up the price. Also, the head is very small, so that'd be pretty hard to put in a hinge and a feature that big and of course complex in a space that small. So it is understandable why they didn't do it. If it was a bigger figure, I think they could have. That's just a wish or kind of a want I would have liked to see, but again, that would be pretty hard to do. Overall articulation is pretty good, and the remote, of course, you can fully collapse the wings or fully spread them out. The legs, actually pretty good. A very good ankle pivot, actually forward and out, and of course both sides, left and right. And of course, I think you can actually also tip the toes. Average articulation for the legs, of course, full splits, articulation forward and back. Of course, if you kick the leg back, it is slightly limited because, of course, there's the wings and the whole ponytail and the whole backpack, so it's a little bit limited, but pretty standard, I would say, for a leader. I do think they probably could have put a wrist swivel in the normal arm. Unfortunately, there isn't, but there is actually a hinge, so you can slightly angle the hand. So if you have him with like a sword or a blaster, you can have some pretty cool dynamic poses. Which does have another complaint with this figure, which this is kind of a thing that that happens with leaders. Unfortunately, most leaders have very few accessories. That's why it shocked a lot of us with Blitzwing. He comes with like, I think 6 or something accessories. He comes with like a sword, 2 blasters, and those 2 energon-infused gauntlet things. And even if you don't like those, there's 3 solid accessories, the sword and 2 blasters, so that's pretty good. It's like 5 accessories for a leader, so I do hope, and maybe in the future for more leaders, they can try and do that, not just have one accessory, because especially with this one, this accessory really only is good for one mode. You know, when you only have one and it's just okay, that's pretty bad. It does create a cool effect again, but if you're only going to display this in the robot mode, you know, what are you going to do with it? Yes, there is a feature where you can get the blaster piece and have him hold it in his hand. It's supposed to be like a fire mace or something. I never really understood that. It looks kind of weird in my opinion. Unfortunately, that's probably how I'm going to have him hold it, because I really don't know where else to put it, because I think if I plug it into his hand, it's going to stick out too much. So probably, unfortunately, I'm going to have him hold it in his hand. It'll look weird, but that's kind of what I got to do. Overall, a very solid figure. I just hope for the future of leaders in Legacy or Studio Series they can include more accessories, because I actually recently did get Studio Series 86 Sludge, and again, he only came with 1 accessory, so I do feel like 2 would probably be the limit, the least amount of accessories that should come with a leader. But I don't want to fault this figure at all, because as it is, not including the accessory problem, I think it's a very solid figure. I highly suggest to get this one, because it's a really good leader. Probably my favorite of Legacy. It's going to be in one of those, that's a very high-priced item on the aftermarket. It's probably going to be like the Fallen, where a ton of people want it, and it's going to be super expensive to get if you get it on eBay. So if you have the chance to get it on Amazon, Hasbro Pulse, or of course for retail price, 100% get it, because it's such a good figure. Hope you enjoyed this review. There's some more content coming soon, and of course let me know what you think of this figure in the comment section down below, and I'll see you next time.